Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tips. My name is Julian, and this is that episode of the week where I tell you which guys you should consider cutting from your team in order to make room for players that probably have more business being on your team. Before we get started though guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at Fantasy Tips. I'm constantly posting updates there to help you guys win each and every week. And if you guys want to know which players to replace the guys I'm about to mention in this video with, go ahead and check out my waiver wire video for week 14 right up there. Without further ado, let's jump right into it and let's start with some forwards that you should consider cutting from your team. So first on the list, guys, is Tyler Seguin of the Dallas Stars, 69% owned, and it really sucks to include someone who's as talented as he is on this list. But the thing is, he only has 13 points in 34 games this year. And the thing is with Tyler Seguin, in the past, even when he wasn't producing, he always would give you a safe floor because of his shot volume. This year, his shot volume has fallen off a cliff, and in his last 4 games, he has 4 shots in all those games combined, which is absolutely terrible. And Tyler Seguin's ice time has really dropped off too, so I don't really like the direction he's heading in right now, and there are probably some better guys on your waiver wire that'll get you a lot more points than Tyler Seguin. Next is my MANSCAPED must-trim player of the video, Alexander Radulov. Get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code word FANTASYTIPS. That's 20% and free shipping with the code word FANTASYTIPS at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence, guys, and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Now, why is Alexander Radulov my MANSCAPED must-trim player of the video? Well, it's quite simple. He's been absolutely terrible this year with only 12 points in 31 games, which is not Radulov-like. This guy used to be an absolute snipe show, was able to put up a lot of points, and it's unfortunate that he's dipped off this much, but he's been given opportunities all year round. His line mates have not necessarily been the best all year, but he's been on that top power play with Hintz, Robertson, and Pavelski all year round and still has barely been able to produce this year. So there's really no excuse for Radulov anymore. Doesn't really offer a safe floor, constantly negative. It's just not worth holding on to this guy anymore, unfortunately. I don't know what to tell you. He's just maybe too old now and is not quite as talented anymore. Maybe the injuries took a toll on him. And next is Nino Niederreiter of the Carolina Hurricanes, 30% owned, and he was mass added recently because he was playing on that top line with Sebastian Aho and was doing really, really well on that top line. But suddenly, Carolina has decided to switch out Niederreiter from that top line for Seth Jarvis, and Niederreiter's back on the third line with Jordan Staal, which I mean isn't the worst line in the world, but definitely isn't the best in terms of fantasy, so he's not going to get a lot of points anymore. Therefore, you can drop Nino Niederreiter and pretty much all leagues. And then I have Yanni Gourde of the Seattle Kraken, 26% owned. Center is their second line. And in Seattle, the talent there is not that good. So their second line isn't exactly an elite line. Like right now, the second line is Gourde, Yarncroke, and Colin Blackwell. Like, yikes. That's not a good line at all. And Yanni Gourde's not even getting top power play right now. For some reason, they're only deploying him on their second unit, even though he is one of their most talented players. I'd rather have him on that top unit than Calle Yarncroke. But anyway, I don't think Seattle is going to be making the playoffs this year, so maybe they do want to tank a little bit. Who knows? Unfortunately, Yanni Gourde is not super valuable this year in fantasy. Then I have Corey Perry of the Tampa Bay Lightning, 21% owned, and he was going through a pretty nice stretch recently, but with Kucherov back, his line is not going to be deployed as much. Those top 2 lines in Tampa Bay are really going to, get a lot of the ice time. Corey Perry's only seeing second power play time as well, so his value is not super high right now, and his hot streak is kind of over, so definitely worth dropping. Next is Kevin Shattenkirk of the Anaheim Ducks, still somehow 69% owned. He had an awesome beginning of the season, so obviously it made sense that a lot of people were adding him, but the fact that people are still hanging on to him doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. He has only 3 points in his last 8 games, and it doesn't put up a whole lot for peripherals, so if he's not putting up a point for you, he's not doing a whole lot for your team, and therefore definitely should not be owned in 69% of leagues. He should probably be owned in fewer than 50% of leagues at best. Next on the list is Justin Falk, and much like Kevin Shattenkirk, if he's not putting up points for you, he's not doing that much for you, unfortunately. If you're in a hits league, he's going to do a little bit more for you since he does put up a couple of hits per night. So he does offer a little bit more of a floor. But if you're not in a league that counts hits, Justin Falk doesn't exactly have a super safe floor. And if he's not putting up points for you, he's doing not a whole lot for you. So there's no reason for him to be owned in this many leagues. He's only manning the second power play right now in St. Louis. And that power play obviously doesn't get that much time and does not get as much power play goals as the first unit, unfortunately. So Justin Falk, while I don't hate him, I don't think he offers a 65% rostered kind of upside. If you're in a shallower league and there's defensemen out there with a little bit more upside, I would go ahead and grab them over Justin Falk. Then I have Mattias Ekholm of the Nashville Predators, 33% owned, and people were adding him a little bit recently because he did go on a tiny bit of a hot streak. And by hot streak, I mean he played well for like 3 or 4 games. And now it seems like he's back to his old ways. And by old ways, I mean like the way he's been playing all year, which has not been good. He hasn't really been putting up peripherals, has not really been putting up points, and there's no reason to hold this guy on your team, unfortunately. And when a team like Nashville, who's been playing so good all year, has a guy like Ekholm who's supposed to be great and is still not producing, that's kind of a red flag that he's just not someone who's worth owning this year, unfortunately. Then I have Bowen Byram of the Colorado Avalanche, 31% owned, and it really sucks because he's a young kid and he's pulled himself out of the team because of concussion issues. Apparently, he's got issues affecting him in his everyday life because of the concussions that he's been having. So it doesn't look like he probably will be back for the rest of the year. There's a chance that he'll come back towards the end of the year, but it's really not worth holding him on your fantasy team, unfortunately, because the upside he offers is not worth holding this guy forever and ever on your fantasy team. It's just not. Then I have Nate Schmidt of the Winnipeg Jets, 27% owned, and Nate Schmidt still gets to play on that second power play in Winnipeg. And that second power play isn't horrible, but he just really hasn't been producing as of late. And if he's not producing points for you, he's not doing a whole lot. Yeah, he does get a couple of blocks per game, so he does offer a tiny bit of a floor, but to me, that's not worth holding him in most leagues. Once he starts producing again consistently, then I'll consider picking him up again. But for now, if there's somebody better out there, I would drop Nate Schmidt. Moving on to goalies now, and first is Philip Grubauer of the Seattle Kraken, 59% owned, and he's been absolutely brutal all year round. And you'd think things would have started to go better recently, right? No, over his last 11 games, he's allowed 3 goals or more in all 11 of them. That is absolutely terrible, and Seattle's not winning a lot of games either, so he really does not have a whole lot of upside. That being said, if you're in a super deep points-based league and there's no other goalies available that are starting games, you kind of have to hold on to Grubauer. But if you're in a Cats league, I'm dropping Grubauer. If you're in a points-based league where there are other starting goalies available, I'm dropping Grubauer. It's just been too long, and it's just not worth holding on to him at this point. Then I have Peter Mrazek of the Toronto Maple Leafs, 51% owned, and it looks like Jack Campbell is continuing to get like pretty much every single start in Toronto besides like the back-to-back. So Mrazek is not really worth holding in 50% of leagues. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense since he only is getting one start every once in a while when the Leafs play back-to-back games. Therefore, Mrazek is a drop in a lot of leagues unless you're really desperate for goalies in your league, in which case you can hope and pray that he gets a little bit more than that for starts. But in reality, guys, Mrazek really is not worth holding on to. Then I have Jeremy Swayman of the Boston Bruins, and he's not worth holding on to anymore with the signing of Tuukka Rask. He was sent to the AHL. So what does that mean for Swayman? He's not going to start anymore this year unless Rask or Ullmark get injured. If one of those guys get injured, he'll get called back up, but it's not worth holding on to this guy with the hope that somebody gets injured, right? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and therefore Swayman is a very easy drop right now. Then I have Alexander Georgiev, 34% owned, and Shesterkin is back now, so he's not on the COVID protocol anymore, so he will get pretty much all the starts going forward in New York besides the back-to-back games, and it's not worth holding on to Georgiev just for those back-to-back games. Then I have Kevin Lankinen of the Chicago Blackhawks, and Fleury is the guy in Chicago who's been way better than Lankinen all year round. And therefore, Lankinen is an easy drop. Even when he does start occasionally, he has not really performed very well, and he's playing not for a very good team either, so the wins won't come. And therefore, there are probably better options out there for you than Kevin Lankinen. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Hope you guys enjoyed the content today, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.